Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors Podcast, and this is episode number 70. Feeling heavenly. That was a cheap one. That wasn't even creative. Feeling plentifully about your Self-Tape May Challenge 2021. Woo! Self-Tape May. Today we have the challenge winner from 2020, Dani Deetté. That's Dani Deetté. She won the Self-Tape May Challenge for 2020. I hope you will complete the Self-Tape May Challenge 2021 and come on and be the winner for next season. That is my true hope for you. So a few things, we'll just quickly do this. I've done this several times. More information on my Instagram page, Audrey Helps Actors Podcast. We've got 16 self-tapes posted to Instagram, hashtag Self-Tape May. Material must have aired. The material must have aired. It has to have aired. If it's a play or a monologue, it must be from something that has been published. If it's a commercial, it must have already aired. Be certain that you can find it on YouTube because it has aired, an aired commercial. It can be 8 seconds. It can be 8 minutes. No worries, no matter how long it is. You can repeat things that you did last year or maybe old auditions that have aired. If they have aired, then you can go ahead and post those. Your IG can be your personal Instagram account, or it can be a fake Instagram account with something like Audrey's Self-Tape May account, right? So that would be my username is like Audrey's Self-Tape May. That's something you can do. You can post them throughout the month of May. You can post them all at once. There's no rules to that. So the Self-Tape May Challenge sort of little thing that you have to have on your person is a button. It is a button. You must wear a button. I'll also accept an actual button pin, not a safety pin, you cheaters, but so there's buttons, and then there's your pins, maybe from Disneyland or something like that. You can also hold a button and then place it down for the rest of your self-tape. That way I know that you have done it. I'm not going to be like a Self-Tape May policeman. It's just so that I know you're not cheating, that these are tapes that you have done and completed in the month of May 16. If you have to mute some, that's fine. I understand. If there is maybe an audition that you have that's an actual audition, you must mute it. If you're going to post it, you have to mute it. You have to mute it. And you can't be like, here's my audition for this company I just auditioned for. That will get you in trouble. Don't do it. Don't post what it's for. Don't say what the character is. Don't say anything about it. Just say, hey, this is a real audition, so I've muted it. That's all you need to say. Don't get yourself in trouble. Don't get an agent or manager or casting director or producer calling you and being super upset at you because you have posted an actual audition to your Instagram. You will get in trouble. Don't get in trouble. So at the end of May, beginning of June, really the first week of June, I'm going to ask people that if they've completed the 16 self-tapes, you are going to submit that somewhere to be announced on my Instagram page. You'll submit your Instagram handle as well as your name, and then I am going to go ahead and number everybody. I will post that to social media. Once I have posted it to social media, I will then also do a random drawing with a random number generator. If your number is called, then you wonderful you are going to be the winner of the Self-Tape May Challenge 2021. And your prize will be that you will come up and we'll have a little podcast together and talk about your experience and the growth and the wins that have happened since then. You can just hear from listening to last week's episode with Haley and this week's episode. It really is so impactful. So Dani's incredible. Dani is kicking ass and taking names, you guys. She just had a huge recurring guest on Winter Soldier on Disney. She is an Atlanta actor. She has worked all kinds of roles with all kinds of super famous people. And she's a second act actor, which I just love. And she went to a smaller market, which I just love. And then she didn't get traction right away, which I just love. Honesty and candor about that. And then she was guided by a beautiful spirit, which you'll hear more about, to complete the challenge. Something really tragic happened to her in the month of May, and she completed the challenge, and she is talking about it and all the growth in her career. She has booked more guest stars since we recorded this episode. They have aired. I just couldn't be more happy for her. So we are going to post some things throughout the week to honor her and her loved one. And I just think you're just going to love this. It's inspiring, it's emotional, it's exciting. This episode is brought to you by Greg Saffel at Singing Lessons Los Angeles. singinglessangeles.com. That's singinglessonslosangeles.com. I love Greg. I've been watching all these master classes and all these incredible, famous, legend master actors, and every single one of them talks about voice work. They all talk about voice work, and I know that that seems a little confusing to people sometimes who haven't maybe had conservatory training, but I just want to say vocal power and physical abilities are such an important part of this. And it's not because every character you have is going to have this booming voice, but more that you have vocal range, that you're pronouncing your words correctly. If you need to have a lower register for a character, that it's accessible to you. And if a higher register that's accessible to you, it's your voice. And almost all of us are raised in a way where we constrict our voice, we constrict our voice, we constrict our voice, we constrict our voice, because you don't want anyone to see or know how you're feeling. And when you're an actor, you have to work that out because people need to see and know and hear how you're feeling. So voice work, singinglessonslosangeles.com. We will get more into that later. And then also Carla Zuniga Hair. That's Carla Zuniga Hair. You can find her on Instagram. She is incredible. She cuts my hair. She cuts so many people's hair. If you are an actor that needs a haircut that can do multitude of things, go onto her Instagram and you can see so many actor makeovers that she has done. If you're looking at doing a dramatic change, look her up. If you just really want somebody really reliable that is going to do something very specific that you need, give her a look. Carla Zuniga Hair. She's amazing. All right, you guys, I hope that you have a self-tape today, and I hope that you book it.
Audrey helps actors because they don't know anything.
Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and today we have
Dani Deetté.
Hi, Dani. So good to meet you. I'm so excited we did this. So everyone listening, you are the most recent Self-Tape May Challenge winner.
Woo!
Yay!
I can't believe it.
I'm so excited. So for those of you not familiar with Self-Tape May, this is going to be the third year in a row. 2 years ago, I decided that I wanted to do just like a thing called Self-Tape May. May is usually like a really slow month in the world of acting. Usually television episodics have like calmed down. The pilots have been shot. Everyone's waiting on advertising to see what gets picked up. Notoriously dead commercially. There's just not a lot happening. When you sign with an agent, often they say, if you're going to take a vacation, go in May. So generally the business sort of shuts down in May, and it's a really depressing month, I always found, for actors, because everyone's got all this like New Year energy at the beginning of the year, like, I'm gonna be awesome. But the truth is that most acting jobs don't really get going until like the fall, like late summer, fall is when most of the numbers start going up. And most people book usually somewhere between August and the end of the year, maybe a little bit more in January. That's all changing because of SVOD, so who knows what will happen.
Right.
But I wanted something that's what I used to do is I used to just really put a lot of things on tape in May, all the time, but definitely in May, took it very seriously. And it's grown into this really awesome movement, and you took part. And so it's 16 self-tapes starting the month of May. You can do them all in one day. If you want to do 16 co-stars in one day, you do you. Live your best life. If you want to do 16 eventually, you can sort of do that and do, 4 a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whenever you want to do it. You can do commercial self-tapes. You can do theatrical. You can do co-stars. You can do series regulars. Whatever floats your boat. It is free. And that was another big part of it was I felt like we were spending all this time and money on these classes. And at the end of the day, I felt like for me, Audrey, I just needed to put myself on tape and get comfortable with learning sides every day and doing the work. So you participated. Was this your first year or your second year doing it?
This was my first year doing it.
Great.
Although I wanted to do it the year before. But I actually did it in
wonderful.
2020.
I know.
we're in 2021. I don't know what's happening.
It does. It feels like a million years ago. So in terms of the first year that you wanted to do it and the second year that you did do it, tell everybody a little bit about your wanting to do it, because I'm sure a lot of listeners will have a lot of understanding of why you didn't do it the first year, and then what made you decide to do it the second year.
Well, first of all, I think I discovered you in the podcast a couple years ago. And I think for a lot of the people listening, for me, it was a godsend to obviously help me really know things in areas of this business that I'm not already exposed to on my particular journey, right? So I had known about it and I thought, wow, that's really cool. I don't know if I could commit to that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure in 2019, I don't remember the exact reason, but I'm sure it had to do with just lack of intentionality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I found this go around that, you know, 4 tapes a week is not that hard.
Yeah.
Although it is hard enough that it really does take some intentionality to go out, find the sides that you're going to work on, pick whatever you're picking for whatever reason you're picking it for. Like for me, if you go to my Tape with Dani Instagram or whatever, it's like, you'll see that I picked a lot of comedy because I typically don't get a chance to go out for comedy. I do drama, dun, dun, dun. So yeah. And then my journey through Self-Tape May was interesting because I ended up doing 11 out of the 16 tapes in the last 5 days of the month.
See, you did just what I just said, which is like you just powered the fuck through, which I love because we're going to get into all of what that is and why that happened.
Yes.
But I love the commitment. You know, I'm always told like there's a yoga saying, which is like extremes are hard. It's easy to never go to yoga and it's easy to go to yoga 30 days in a row. It's hard to do yoga 3 days a week. And Self-Tape May, for me, is like this like jump starter that even if you guys don't end up doing all 16, you have to do 16 to qualify to win. And the winner gets to come on this podcast and it's just a random drawing.
Random.
Here we are, random drawing. And for me, it's just to sort of like ignite you all. And if you do 4, honestly, if you do 4 tapes in May, that's fucking great. And so if you're listening to this right now is the time to do a lot of the work that you were talking about of like finding sides, deciding what you're going to do. Go on and find people who do hashtag Self-Tape May and find other people who've done Self-Tape May and message them for sides. Start seeing if you can collect things.
That is a gem, Audrey, that I wish I would have had, girlfriend.
I have to say, like, I only have this perspective because I've been doing this kind of work for so long that I realized, like, wait, if I look for sides and do it all sort of at once, that's harder. But ideally, you guys, I'm going to be talking, and hopefully you've heard me talk a lot about Market Research March, which we started last year. And that's just like starting to look at what shows are renewed, what shows are canceled, what's shooting in your market. You know, if it's shooting in Canada and you're a co-star and you're living in the United States, you're probably not going to get the co-star that shoots in Canada. So maybe doing Star Trek, though you love the show, isn't the most helpful to you. However, if doing 16 Star Trek self-tapes gets you to just do them, then please do 16 Star Trek. I will take 16 self-tapes from any Star Trek ever at all.
Please do the makeup for it if
Please,
you're going to do Star Trek.
listen, I just want to know.
Do the makeup.
I don't know what I will give, but I will definitely give something to somebody. If somebody goes full Star Trek for 16 total tapes, I'll do something for you. I don't know what it is, but I'm really excited about the possibilities.
So funny.
Now, tell everyone a little bit about your landscape, because I think a big thing that I try to tell people is like this Self-Tape May was started out of my journey when I did 2 years in a row of Monday through Thursday. I learned sides every day and I gave myself one take the next day.
It's amazing.
Thank you. It's just because I realized I was terrible. I must be terrible at auditioning because everyone loved me in class and nobody loved me in auditions. So I figured there was something happening here.
So I technically quit my side job, survival job, whatever you want to call it, in December of 2019.
Okay.
And
cool.
became, quote unquote, a full-time actor.
Yes.
Because I was coming off of recurring 7 out of 8 episodes on a show called The Sinner up in New York, where we shot for USA Network. That was from like September through December. And then it overlapped with a new recurring role that I have on a high-profile Disney project.
Awesome.
That started in December and was supposed to go through the beginning of April, but then COVID hit in March. We were actually filming overseas in March and we got sent back and then the world shut down, right?
Totally.
So everybody we went into hiatus and so I was at home with literally looking at my dog, like, what are we going to do today, Link? You know? So I was like, oh my gosh, I can actually do self-tape May. And I feel like I have the time to give to it. So I talked to one of my friends, shout out to Tess Williams. She's an angel baby. And she, I think, taped me for 11 out of my 16. So
I just love that. I mean, I talk all the time, as you know, on this podcast about like admin buddies. You've got to have some sort of actor buddies, and it definitely takes a village. And Self-Tape May is a really great time to sort of start sifting through who's got your back and whose back do you have. So tell everyone now a little bit about, are you union? How long have you been union? Do you have commercial, theatrical, voiceover? Like, what does it all look like?
I've been professionally pursuing acting, TV and film for about, I guess it'll almost be 5 years at this point, because it was May 2016.
Okay. And did you study in college? Tell me about that.
Okay, so I have a little bit of a different path to getting here. I am not classically trained. I did not go to school for it. I actually went to school for criminal justice.
Oh my God, I love.
I worked in the criminal justice field for 7.5 years after college. And I worked in the court system. I worked in felony probation. I worked in children's protective services, investigating abuse and neglect. And so that's my background.
I just want to pause and say, like, I love this, because you know what happened is you kind of like went a little apologetic in the beginning about like not having this classically trained thing. And I just want to say, so many people are listening and have your experience, and they feel as actors like less valuable, or like they kind of have to apologize. And I'm always like, no, you are bringing something that those actors can't bring. I promise you, like, if I have an audition for an ADA or somebody in the criminal justice system or somebody who deals with those things, there are things that you're going to be able to bring to it, a knowingness, an understanding, even just the jargon. I'm not going to be able to compete with that. I'm just not. There are things that as a classically trained actor, I hope I can bring, but in terms of knowing the world and like knowing what it is and knowing what those people are and being able to really embody that, please never, ever, ever apologize for having another life, especially the life you had. That's an incredibly important profession and really valuable perspective. And don't ever apologize for that time that you spent doing that, because I know, especially because I know what you're booking, I know that that is informing what you do. As an actor.
100%. I mean, I played a police officer on The Sinner for 7 out of 8 episodes.
I sure did see. Yes.
You know, and I play a lot of procedural roles, obviously. So to get back to kind of the journey of it.
Yeah.
I say I started in May 2016 because I moved to Atlanta. I'm currently located in Atlanta. But I do work out of every market that wants to hire me. So I moved here in October of 2015. But because I had left a career and a steady income, and I had no idea what I could do to balance being able to pursue this in terms of my time.
Yes.
And having a full-time job, I was like, well, and I have to shout out to my ex-husband, because he was a huge cheerleader of me actually pursuing this. And he gave me the courage to believe in myself that I could actually go after this at, like, I was almost 32 years old when I started.
And was it like this inkling that you kind of always had this seed of wanting to be an actor? Like, what was that?
It's so funny because I actually was a singer all growing up.
Oh, I see.
So I sang from the time I was 5. I started performing like publicly or whatever. And then I was in like the honors choir in high school, but I was a sports girl. I played sports my whole life, every sport you can imagine, but I played basketball the longest, but I had these different back injuries that had happened to me through basketball. And so I had to stop playing my senior year, and I did the play, but I was like a chorus ensemble person. Like I wasn't a main person, but I just did it to do something with my time. And then I went to college, you know, I graduated, all that stuff. I went into my field, and my ex-husband is also in law enforcement. So we would come home, and we were not people that watched the news because, you know, kind of quite frankly, our life was the news.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we would watch scripted television, and Dexter became one of our favorite shows. Yeah. And I only recently put this together, but it was the role of Detective Deborah Morgan.
Oh, interesting.
That I would constantly watch the show and just look over at him randomly and be like, I really think I could do that. Like, I could definitely play that role. I could play that role.
Yeah.
And so it would just continuously come up, from time to time, where I would be like, man, that would be fun. But, I live in Michigan. We're married. We're probably going to have kids. This is my life. I live here. Yeah. And then, my life unfolded. We parted ways as best friends, thankfully. And I was like, wow, I can actually physically move and I can do something different. And he believed that I could do anything I wanted. And so he made me believe I could do anything that I wanted. And I moved here and I became a server at a restaurant.
So interesting.
Yeah. And so I wasn't making enough money to really get by. And so I didn't actually do anything with acting until about May 2016, when one of the guys who worked at my restaurant said, I'm with this boutique agency, come meet her. And so I went and met her, and luckily she was like, sure. And she was somebody who at the time was getting more of like the non-union television work and stuff, but it was a place to start. So I started there. And then I started building relationships anywhere I could with actors in the community to get information. I am a really inquisitive person.
Well, you've learned. You've learned through your profession, right?
Yeah, I'm a very inquisitive person. And if there's an answer, I'm going to find it somewhere. You know what I mean? I'm very investigative that way. So I put my skills to work, and I figured out who the actual players were in terms of agencies that could get me into the rooms I needed to get into. I started training with people that were reputable here in the area. And it kind of went from there. And now I have a Southeast agent that is boutique, but they are
high-end boutique. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, they're really, really respected.
Yeah. And did you move up to that agent? Did you change agencies?
I did.
Okay.
So I was with an original boutique, and then I went to another
this one. Yeah.
boutique.
Okay,
no, and there was one in between.
You spend your time, you guys. You're not going to go to a smaller market and then like, bam, suddenly you're working all the time. It's earned no matter where you go. And I can't speak to how Los Angeles is extremely competitive. I think New York is the most competitive out of all the markets in terms of qualified actors versus amount of jobs.
Right.
But Atlanta is getting up there, you guys. I definitely wouldn't run to Atlanta thinking like, wow, that's just going to be so fast and easy. Like, that's the solution I've been looking for.
Well, if I can interject on that.
Yeah, please.
So as it pertains to my agency, they might be a boutique, but even though I had several bookings here in this market, and people kind of knew that there's a casting office here that really became an advocate for me, and they've booked me in 11 out of my 13 shows that I've been on. Amazing. And even though these agents knew that I was booking regularly, because I started booking in April 2018. So in an 18-month period, I had 13 bookings, 2 of which were heavily series recurring roles.
I mean, just say it again, because people need to digest that.
In April 2018, I booked my first union show.
Yes.
Which was Ozark. And then within an 18-month period, because I had an advocate in a casting office, I had 13 bookings, which included 2 heavily recurring roles.
One of the criticisms that happens from local actors who are in a smaller market is that casting has their favorites, and they will just hire the same people over and over and over and over again. And it's because, they need to protect their asset. Like, they're trying to keep production there. They're trying to say, see, I've got great people. They're reliable. They're dependable. One of the things that second act actors are really great about is this chiller perspective on it all. Like, you understand, like, you're not going to like show up and then be famous, and then every day that you're not famous is like a failure to first act actors. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm such a loser. To a second act actor, because you've created success already in another business, you understand that you have to build a career. And so the building of that career, you just like, the nervous system is a little calmer, and showing up to work, you understand, like, this is a job interview. This is a professional job. I'm going to come in here and be a professional. You can depend on me to be ready to be at my job. And that's something that I find second act actors are really, really fucking aces at, and why they can become favorites to casting.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. I think the other thing too is that maybe it has to do with my previous profession, but also I think it just has to do with the fabric of who I am. But I've just never been somebody who winces at a no, somebody telling me no, or somebody telling me I can't, it almost fires me up to be like, okay, well then let's figure out
what that is.
How that becomes a yes. Yeah. But what I will say is that, yes, so like 11 of my bookings are co-star procedural type of roles, right? But I was purposeful in that. When I figured out that typecasting is not a bad thing, I was like, what will be my easiest foot in the door?
Oh my God. And let's pause because I love this. This is what we're talking about. It's not that you're limiting yourself. I like to say, like, what is the quickest, fastest route between me and momentum? And it's not that that's permanent. It's just like, what do I need to do to sort of be this clearest solution fast? Yes. And so the casting director that has been, casting me often, he actually did an interview in the UK that multiple people had sent to me because they were like, hey, he's talking about you in this interview. Amazing. And without saying my name, but what he said about typecasting, because the interviewer brought up typecasting and specifically brought up law enforcement, because it's just something that's talked about a lot, right? Yeah. And he said in the article, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said something along the lines of, figure out what you're good at and then continue to do it and continue to get cast. He said there's a particular actor who we have cast over and over again. She's like one of our go-tos for female procedural roles. And actually I booked, I think 3 different shows where they wrote it for a man and they brought me in as the wild card. Yes. Yeah. Because they also look for where, because it's a female and male partnership. Yes. And they always look for where can we put a woman possibly. Yes. So that's great. And kudos to them. So basically he said, we know that she wants to do more, but with these co-star roles specifically, he said, you have to walk on camera and we have to just immediately believe that you are that person. We don't have a lot of dialogue for you to convince us. So he said, when she walks into a room, you believe that she's a cop or whatever, because she worked in that field in other capacities. Right. So he said, and we know she wants to do more. And I know that they're fighting for me to do more. And he said, but had she not said yes to all of these little co-stars, maybe she doesn't get that recurring guest star police officer up in New York. Absolutely. And maybe we don't have the trust built with her enough yet to put her up for this series recurring high profile Disney project. And it's not a procedural role. Hallelujah. Yes. So it was a really good read and it was a good point that he had made that I just hadn't thought about before. I love that. I mean, it's so much of what I try to say all the time. It's what I call a quick read, but particularly for these smaller roles. Like, you don't get a story to figure out who you are. You need to come in, be a cop. You need to come in, be a hipster barista. You need to come in, be an obnoxious social media queen. You need to sort of like quickly be that thing because we're not going to like discover your depth. You're coming in, serving a very clear purpose and leaving. And also with those smaller roles, I think people get frustrated and confused in feeling like I have all this depth or I have all these things to bring. And it's just this sort of all or nothing thinking like, okay, now this is my permanent life. Listen, nobody can tell the future. And it is really hard. There are plenty of people out there who have lots of one-line, no-name co-stars who have been at it for years and aren't getting the opportunities to get those recurrings, to get those larger roles. And I can't say what that is, that one person gets it and one person doesn't. It's a very personal choice, and you all have to go on your own personal journeys about it. But I definitely think it's relationships. And when you have fans and people know what to do with you, and then you show people that you can do more, that's my experience, they will very often give you more.
And, something along that same line just kind of happened with me. And so I mentioned earlier that my very first network booking was Ozark, right? That was for season 2. I played a paramedic. Yeah. They ended up reaching out to my previous agent who I was with at the time and said, hey, we had to cut Dani's scene for time, but we want to circle back to her for season 3. And originally I thought, yeah, right. Thanks for calling and like getting me excited. You're telling me, but then people were like, they don't call and tell you you're cut. No, cause I was still so new. And I was like, oh, so maybe that conversation really happened. Right. So then fast forward, I'm auditioning again and they bring me in for a no-name cop on Ozark season 3. And I book it. And I mean, I'm not going to lie. A thought crossed my mind at some point naturally because of all the voices that you hear in this business going, you're currently recurring as a cop on this show as a recurring guest star. You've done all of these cops. Do you need another no-name cop? But I want to work with Jason Bateman more. Him and Melissa McCarthy are like my two top, and I didn't get a chance to see him that time around. And so then anyway, I do it, I book it, and I'm so glad I did because for multiple reasons. Number one, because Laura Linney was a doll. She was so amazing to work opposite. And I just felt like that day on set, I was like, wow, I feel the most like an actor I've ever felt.
That's awesome.
Like being up against her in a way, you know? And they're bringing me back for season 4.
It's so great. I mean, this is the thing that you just can't know. And it's personal for everybody, you guys. Like, there are some times where no-name somethings seem like they're in the world of the play, and then they're actually never going to come back. And there's some times where things feel like, oh, yeah, this one is just like a one and done. This is at some random restaurant. Like, this waiter will never come back. And then suddenly that character is in that restaurant. The lead is in the restaurant all the time. And that waiter then gets this weird, like, storyline of always waiting on this particular lead. Like, you unfortunately, as everything in this business, you just don't get to know. You don't get to know. So great. I love this.
But wait, Dani, wait. You amazing goddess. I have to interrupt you.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you shit you didn't know about your union.
This shit you don't know about your union is brought to you by Greg Saffel at singinglessonslosangeles.com. That's singinglessonslosangeles.com. Greg is a magician with a voice. So many people, they have gone to Greg and then their acting teachers have been like, oh my God, what has happened to your voice? It is completely transformed. And I am so astonished by the work that's happened. So don't just think like if you are a singer, then you need voice class. Actors have their body and their voice. If you are an actor, working on your body and not working on your voice is like a ballerina working on strength but not flexibility. It's like a yogi working on strength but not flexibility. It is essential that you work your body and your voice. I do my voice lessons from Greg like 3-5 times a week just to keep them going. He gives me tapes. I work them during the day so that I have vocal resonance, so that I have vocal range, so that I can pronounce my words, so that people can understand what I am saying, and so that my vocal channel of expression is open. So Greg Saffel, singinglessonslosangeles.com. He is incredible. He's affordable. He does it over the internet. So just give him a little look up and check him out. So this shit you don't know about your union is regarding COVID tests. I just wanted everyone to know in terms of theatrical COVID tests, especially for television, for streaming video on demand, high SVOD. So that's like your Netflix, your Hulus, your Disneys, all of those. If you have a question about your COVID test, call the union, get on the app and give a little chat. You get paid for your COVID test. You get paid $250 to go and test. $250 smackaroos to take time out of your life and go and test. If you are a person who has had wardrobe, so say you had a wardrobe fitting and then they test you for COVID on the day of your wardrobe, if you do not get paid for your test and your wardrobe, but instead you're getting paid just for your wardrobe, I want you to call SAG and let them know, because SAG's opinion and what they have negotiated is that you get paid for both. And the AMPTA, which is the producers association that we negotiate with, sometimes are not doing that. So you're just going to call SAG. You're just going to let them know. You're just going to be on a list of people that maybe that's a similar issue that they're having, and they're going to file a claim for you, and they are going to contact you and tell you about your money. So go get your money. Please read your checks, everybody. I'm so passionate about that. And look for your COVID tests. If you have been called to test twice, make sure that you have 2 COVID test payments. If you don't have 2 COVID test payments, call your agent, call accounting, whoever you need to call, and just let them know, hey, you know what? I did 2 COVID tests and I only got paid for 1. If, again, you have a question, because all the contracts are different, commercial is its own contract and independent film is its own contract. If you have a question about being paid for your COVID test, don't call me, don't email me, call SAG. I just want you to know, I know it's scary. I know for some weird reason it's scary to call SAG. Call SAG and just say, hey, I did this project, I did this independent film, and I just want to know, I did this COVID test here in Los Angeles before I went to go film, and then I did twice. Do I get paid for that? Am I going to get paid for that? Solve the problem before you're just like, oh my God, I don't know where it is. Okay, read your checks, get paid for your tests. All right, guys, I hope that helps.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Then let's talk a little bit about Self-Tape May. What I love is that you were in this place where it was devastating. You guys, it was already devastating in terms of COVID hit. A lot of people who had jobs coming. It was already super devastating.
Yeah.
And my favorite quote right now for acting is Sterling K. Brown's quote when he accepted his SAG award, which is that the money won't sustain you, the fame won't sustain you, but the love will sustain you.
Yes. Well, I'm just going to preface this whole thing with I'm definitely going to cry.
Okay, good. I'm a super crier, so don't even worry about it.
I should have brought my tissues over here.
Go get your tissues. You want to go get them? Go get them.
No,
Okay,
it's okay.
She'll use her sleeve. Okay, good.
I'm going to use my sleeve of my cute giraffe shirt that none of you can see, but I love it so much.
She's wearing the most adorable giraffe shirt.
So May comes and I am so pumped because one of the other things that just as a personal note, like I wanted to use Self-Tape May for, because even though I've been booking and I've been working, I've been working at a level at which, like the material isn't super crazy and challenging me in a way, right? Because I've gotten very used to like doing not much because that's what's needed, right?
Yes.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to hit these series regular and guest star sides really, really hard. And I was going to use it as growth in that way.
I just want to pause and talk about that because it's really important. You guys just know, like, there's practice and there's deliberate practice. And I think Self-Tape May should be used for both. For some people, just get tapes done. Just go running. And for some people, if you're at a place of stasis, if you feel like you can't get up and get through, then if you're trying to go from co-star to guest star, work big roles. If you want 4 auditions a week of a certain caliber and size, start working 4 auditions a week of a certain caliber of size. Like you said, you're really great at problem solving. And so you knew you wanted larger roles. And so you thought, well, fuck, I better start working on larger roles.
Yeah, not only should I be prepared, but I'm a huge believer in you attract more of what you do. And
I so agree.
Yeah. So if I want to attract guest star and series regular auditions, then I need to be working those sides. And even still right now with the stuff that I've done, I have never auditioned for a series regular. So I'm still manifesting it.
Here's the thing. None of it makes sense and it's all bonkers town and it's all actually normal. Getting a lot of series regular auditions without having any co-stars is actually normal. Having a bunch of roles that are larger and actually never having auditioned for anything larger is also normal. There are no rules to this fucking business, and that's what's great and maddening.
Yes. And that's the other thing that I love about it too, because like throughout my journey, there's been, like I said, a lot of voices in this business that will come and tell you what you should do, and they should all over you. And I should all over myself and sometimes over my friends. And, I got to be aware of that. But the thing that's great is that I still get to decide what's going to work for me and what I want to do in my journey to this thing. And so I love that. But so I wanted to use Self-Tape May to be intentional, like I said, for those purposes, and to really just get deep in the work. And my friend Tess and I decided we're going to do this thing together. We might not be able to tape every audition, but let's try and do most of them, right? And Tess is a newer actor. She's like 22 years old. She's like my little sister. And I was like, let's do this, girl. So we get to working on it. I had completed 5 self-tapes. And it was the second week of May. So that following day, I think we were going to knock out like 3 over that weekend to like hit like May 15th, May 16th timeframe, right? And then on May 15th, I unexpectedly lost one of my best friends. Trayvon Lindsay is his name. And Trey was a friend that I met here in Atlanta. He was primarily a dancer, also started pursuing acting, and he was just a light in this world. Anybody who has met Trey knows, whether you met him once or you met him 1,000 times, he's the same guy every time. He is all teeth, all smiles, all joy. he's a dancer, so he's constantly like moving around, all that stuff, right? So Trey had a heart condition. He'd had a heart attack when he was a kid, but we all thought that it was under control. He's a dancer. Like he's, you know what I mean? He's active, but he was at dance rehearsal, and they finished their set, and he had a heart attack. So anyway, that happened, and it felt like life crumbled down around me. And, I wasn't really necessarily thinking about it, but at some point I thought, well, there goes self-tape May. I'm definitely not finishing. It's May 15th. I've got 5 of them done, and I can't even cook a meal for myself right now, let alone put mental energy into finding sides and doing the work. So fast forward to May 25th, George Floyd happens, and that whole incident happens. And I have family that still works in law enforcement, and that was a whole nother thing that I was dealing with, personally, in private, with just conversations that were very difficult. And it was devastating for everybody, obviously. And then 2 days later, on the 27th, I think it was, I was having like my biggest breakdown since I had lost Trey. I was just in my room, and I was losing it. And this voice, and this is such a God thing, because for me to be here as a guest on your show is a God thing, because I also have been manifesting meeting you, and hopefully maybe eventually being a guest one day on the show, but just wanted to meet you because of everything you do for actors and how much I appreciate you. But this voice said, you're going to finish that challenge, right? And I looked up, and I thought, the fuck I am? Who are you talking to? What are you talking about? And I just knew it was Trey. It was God. I have a relationship now with God because of Trey. Trey took me to church. We were church buddies every Sunday. We were at church together, I was like, oh, okay. You want me to go do a self-tape? Okay, fine. You know what? F you. I walked into my taping room, and I was like, what can I do by myself without a reader? And you guys will see, I think it's tape 10 or 11 on there, but it's a morgue scene. And I was like, I'm going to use where I'm at. I was losing my shit. And I decided, okay, I'm going to be at the morgue, and I'm going to place a morgue worker there, and I'm going to just take a moment, and I'm going to tell them, okay, you can pull the sheet back so I can like see my loved one. And I let the tape run way too long, but I did it. And that was my first tape back, was releasing what I was feeling with that. And then in 5 days I did 11 tapes, and it was really, honestly, I had put my ego aside to post all of those, because I wasn't doing it for me. I mean, I was doing it a little bit for me to prove to myself that like, you can get up and you can do it through this. Life doesn't have to be perfect to get it right. Right. But mostly I was doing it in Trey's honor. And because I felt like God told me I needed to do that. I needed to finish what I said I would do, what I committed to myself to doing. And so I posted the last 11 and cringed, because it's nowhere near the level of work that I typically put out. But I realized very quickly that it was more important for me to be transparent about what I was going through at the time, and still making and finding the space to be proud of myself for that.
Yes.
Instead of worrying about if the work was perfect. So
that was
and then I won the damn challenge. What the heck? Like, and that is, you know what I mean? I feel like that is the universe working.
I'm with you.
For me, with me, whatever it is, right? So
yeah. I mean, one of my intentions, I'll get emotional, is like, one of my intentions is to be what I call like the path of least resistance for people, and to provide relief. I really believe, and I love being guided. I've gone into an audition, and I've sat down, and the person next to me has said, "You're Audrey?" And I'm like, yeah. They're like, "Oh my God. I was literally just in my car crying about you."
Yes.
And I was on the phone with my mom, and I said to my mom, I just feel like I just want to meet her and just like see her and tell her thing. And then you literally just sat down right next to me. Every time that happens, I just feel like so grateful and so connected
Yeah.
And so honored, truly honored to be used in, to me, what feels like this greater sense and this greater purpose. And I just love it. I love this whole conversation. And
you are walking in your purpose, girl. There's no doubt about it.
I want to just say to everybody that doing the work at that moment was not right or wrong. If you're a person who has a grief experience and you can't pick up a script, there's no shame in that. I also want to say that because I think sometimes there gets to be this like addict-y stuff that comes to acting for a lot of people. To me, it's like a little culty. It's like, and if you undergo some trauma, you show up that night and you perform.
And you use it.
And you use it. And I used to like hear that. I'd be like, yeah. And then you use it. And now I'm like, or not. Or use cry.
Eat a whole bag of potato chips and a Domino's pizza and sit in your bed.
Hypervigilance is just a different coping mechanism for trauma. And hypervigilance works really great for me, you guys. It's really great. But I want to just also say to everyone, if you're going through this, if you go through anything, whenever you're listening to this, there are going to be a lot of people who are going through a traumatic experience, have never listened to Audrey Helps Actors. They're going to scroll on the list of episodes and they're going to land on this episode, Dani. And they are going to realize, just like what we were saying, like, oh, this episode was meant for them, for this moment right now. Yeah. And it's okay that you don't go right to the work. And what I love about it is that for you, you were able to receive, and this, we got real hippie, you guys, but I love it, receive an impulse truly. And that's just like what we do in acting. Acting is receiving impulses. You received this impulse and it said, get to work.
Yeah.
Let's do the work. And then being who you are, you were like,
I was like, F you.
Yeah. Exactly.
First I was like, F you.
Yes. I love that.
And then I was like, fine. I'll show you then.
Well,
if that's what I'm supposed to do.
Work then.
Yeah.
And then after all that, and this is it's so beautiful about Self-Tape May, there's so much humility. And I just love this of doing the work and it not being perfect. You guys, it is so real. There's a lot of humility. And I really encourage you guys, make private self-tape accounts. Make them. If that's better for you, if it's more comfortable for you, make a separate self-tape account and have that and invite other people who are self-taping to watch if you'd like. But there is nothing wrong with having it on private and doing it just so that you've done it and it's out there for you. Because God, I'm so tired of this idea that the work is always perfect.
Yeah.
The work is mostly not perfect.
And I struggle with that perfectionism, you know, type A, straight A student syndrome. And I know that you're the same way.
Yeah, sure,
because you are hyper organized on top of your stuff, you know. So, but for me, like, yes, make a private account if that's what you want to do. For me, I felt called to keep it public because I talk about Trey in the caption of my last video. And then part of me was like hopeful that maybe some people would click on my other page, the Dani _Deetté, and see the tribute that I had posted there for him, because really finishing this, like I said, was to honor him and what he wanted to do, I know, in this business, and he's not going to get to do. So I left it public for that reason, because the world should know Trey Lindsay.
Yeah.
That's why it's such a God thing for me. And maybe if you don't believe in God or you believe in the universe or whatever you believe in, but for me, it's such a God thing that now, like the second that I won Audrey, I burst into tears, and I looked up and I was like, oh my God, I get to tell the world of whoever's listening to this podcast, I get to tell them about Trey. Yeah. And I called Tess and we screamed, and I was like, oh my God, girl, she called my number. I get to go on the podcast and I'm going to get to talk about what happened this month, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
The long and short of it, though, is I'm so grateful to be here and tell you thank you in person, quote unquote, over Zoom for what you do, because it is priceless and it is so valuable. And I know so many people who are growing in their journey because of what you have orchestrated and all the people who are helping you, Jesse and everybody else. You know, all the names that rattle off in my head in the script, Ari De Niro and like, your sound guy and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You're all doing a great, great thing.
Thank you so much. I really do believe as actors, it's one of the beautiful things that actors bring to the community is the courage of being present with our emotional experience.
Yeah.
And I just encourage anyone, if this brings anyone any solace, like I've literally emailed my agents and been like, hey, I would love anything that is just sobbing. If you can just get me somebody who's like lost a kid, just been diagnosed with something horrible. Like I just need to like outlet complete trauma. Just keep an eye out for me. And I do. And then I book it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I'm just like, this is where I'm at, you guys.
Right. And also like you're doing that for yourself, but also when you book it, or even if you don't, and casting is the only place that sees the work, you might be pouring into someone by giving that genuine experience that you're really in this place. And so if you're a mother that lost your child or whatever, and you're really in that place, then you could be serving somebody else later. So it's really, really a beautiful thing.
That saying that I love so much, my cup runneth over and whatever's left over, that's for you. But if my cup isn't full, I'm going to go fill it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that.
And I always feel like, shout out to Ayala Van Sands. That's hers. And I say that to myself and to my friends all the time because it can be really easy to deplete yourself. For me, I can only speak for me. I try to bring energy, enthusiasm, kindness, humor, passion to things. And if I'm exhausted and angry, that isn't Audrey's superpower. So I can't speak for anyone else. But I feel like what I bring is a sense of enthusiasm and hope and encouragement and passion and a lightness and a brightness. And if my fucking light is dark, I can't bring that to people. Yeah. And there are other people who bring other things, and I truly am grateful for them. But what Audrey brings needs to be protected and nourished.
Right. And then she just can't beat herself up when she's in those moments where she's not.
No,
you know, I mean, and be okay not being able to give all the time.
All the time, yeah. Take a nap. That's what Audrey does. I take a nap.
Me too. I cuddle with my pup and I take a nap.
Exactly that. Well, now I'd love to talk about that experience and just the self-tape practice in general. How has it helped to move you forward in terms of your career and your pursuits? I know you said you were sort of using it originally to work on larger roles. You have something that's airing soon. That is a high-profile Disney project. Did you go back and continue shooting that? Did you go back and resume that?
Yes, we did. And we finished that up. We shot in Atlanta, and then we also shot overseas. So we went back overseas for the month of October.
Cool.
By April, the show will be out. Everybody can look up what I'm on if they feel like it, you know, and they'll know exactly where I was. But it was an incredible experience. I've booked since then is a voiceover project, which I don't know why I'm under NDA, but they have a really strict NDA, but it's a voiceover project for a major network. Great. And I will say that it did serve me because they sent me these VO spots, and they sent me I auditioned probably 6-7 times for this show, and everything was like super, super emotional. Like I'm talking mothers on the phone thinking that they're losing their child, trying to resuscitate them, like women running from an abusive boyfriend in the car, like just all this really deep stuff. And so I really felt like I had revved up that engine, you know, in May. Anyway, so I did that voiceover gig. I went back and I finished my show. And then, you know, right now we're in the process of hopefully we're going to start pitching to, you know, mid-level agencies in New York and LA, because that's the next place that we want to be. And I've partnered with a publicist. I know I talked to you about that. And so kind of just seeing where we're headed next.
Awesome. What are some things for the listeners out there who are wanting to get better, wanting to have a booking ratio that even remotely looks like yours? What are some things that you can say to people about the self-tape process?
I think for me, and obviously all of this is prefaced with for me and only me, because I can't speak for anybody else, but taping other people is what made me a better actor.
I love.
For 3 years, I had a taping service, I use air quotes, that I ran out of my house. And it was never anything that I promoted, heavily as like a real business, but it was all word of mouth. And I think I've taped hundreds of actors at this point. And I will say that I feel I grew the most being in that little sunroom that I transformed into a taping room and watching people work. And it was like it clicked. It was like I knew why it wasn't working. So whether it be that they're setting up the environment and I can't see what they see by watching the tape, meaning, for anybody who might not know what I'm talking about, meaning like clear eye lines. If you're telling a secret, giving us the hint that you want to speak in hushed tones and you're aware of, the guy at the bar next to you or whatever it is, right? So it was that, or it was something that I noticed was like, people don't think about relationship a lot.
God, relationship. You're talking about relationship and environment. And I have to say, relationship and environment, you guys. And it's so clear when it's not there. And I think most people kind of think they have somebody, but the number of times that like for this podcast, we do a level up episode and I'm like, hey, so I just feel like I didn't really have like your Benny, right? And they're like, did you have a clear Benny? They're like, no.
Yeah.
Like, right. So always, if you're talking, you have to have a clear relationship, a strong, it's a blank ass little box here. Like the strongest point of view on everyone you're talking to and about.
Yep. That's what I always say. Yeah. Whenever, because I started coaching like by default. I didn't intend to do that, but then people started asking me if I would coach their auditions. So I started doing that on the side, helping people out in that way, and started like mentoring a little bit to people who are, coming up behind me, who started after me or whatever. And then I started having, imposter syndrome about that, of course, thinking, well, who am I to coach and who am I to do all this? But I started realizing that for every place that you're at, you have come from another place. And so you can pay it forward to the people who are coming behind you in that way. And so then I started really owning that. But it's funny that you ask what really helps self-tapes, because even recently I've been feeling blocked. I've been observing myself a bit. I've started like, I can see the other me standing on the other side of the camera, watching what I'm doing, and I'm not completely letting go. And I messaged my good friend, Emily Page Hogan, last night, and she said, she texted me and she's like, I just woke up out of a dead sleep and I realized your objective isn't strong enough. Because I focus on relationship all the time. And she said to me, she's like, Dani, you're so like wonderful at focusing on relationship, and you have like this natural ability to make us believe you that you're just genuinely existing in this space. She said, and most of the time you can fool me, but when you have talked about having blocks, which I might not even notice, she said, when you talk about it, when I go back and watch the tapes that you talk about it on, it all clicked to me. Your objective isn't strong enough. So that's a realization I just had last night when I was taping for something. And so, like, what do I want out of it? Sometimes I know exactly who I'm talking to, but it's like, what is my point? What am I trying to get you to do? And I know it, but I'm not thinking about it enough.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
I really love and this is, if I can just give this to you, you got to have a checklist, Dani. And if you realize something like objective is a little soft for you sometimes, it doesn't have to be a long checklist. It can be environment, relationship, objective. Yeah. And it's just to hold yourself accountable for habits that both work and don't work. Yeah. Like, whenever I use a prop, I book. Okay, well, get a fucking prop every time then. Whenever I make the scene about my best friend, then I book the job. Okay, well, then try to use your best friend as often. But if objective is something you're soft on, like objective is hard, because it's like, how do you, in this like blank box, like make objective clear in the way that you would when you had your body sort of moving in space and a camera using you and like in relationship to a physical person. And it's like, there's a lot of behavior I feel like that can go in like the actual filming of something. Yeah. That when
I love physicality and business. Having 100%. Business is like my favorite thing ever.
Me too. And so like with objective, I hope you have a lot of fun playing around with it. Like seeing what works.
I'm excited to start thinking more about it, because what she said is she's a classically trained actor, right? So she was like, my classical brain was reeling about this before I went to bed. And then I woke up thinking I had the answer. I'm somebody who I've realized I act off of my instincts often. And it's just kind of how I'm wired. It's what makes me feel the best and the most in it, to not overthink. So I don't ever have notes on my script, and people see it and they're like, where's all your notes? And I'm like, I don't know. Am I doing it? And then I started thinking, was I doing it wrong? I started thinking that at the beginning of my journey, like, oh my God, my one friend who books all the time, he writes his lines 100 times. And I thought, well, I'm never going to be a good actor because I'm never going to write my lines 100 times. Right. And then I realized, this is just my process. So, but she said, for the times that all of your instincts that typically serve you, like, let's say you're tired one day, when those things start failing you, it is good to have these other tools that can come in and back you up, that you can rely on.
Well, Emily, girl, that's right on. And also I would say, what I love is we're going to get like real nerdy about acting, which I just like love, is that first of all, like, I hope everyone listening to this can hear, like, an audition technique is a living, breathing, growing thing.
Yes.
Like, and it grows and breathes as according to usually the size of opportunities that you get. And then sometimes you get a larger size opportunities and you realize like, oh, okay, maybe the way I've been working for this other size isn't going to cut it for these larger roles. And that is just growth. That's like, well, I can jog 5 miles, but when I'm asked to jog 24, I don't feel ready. And it's like, well, that's correct, probably. That doesn't sound bad. That sounds like logical, A plus B. That sounds fine. Just like you say, I totally believe everything is solvable. Everything is solvable. So how do we solve it? And like, one of the things I am truly like, that I'm like most passionate about and most proud of personally, is this very personal relationship that I have created with my work through the audition process. I weirdly feel like more proud of that than any like one job I do, because like that to me feels like, like once you give me the costumes and give me something that blows up and give me a great actor and give me a great director and give me the makeup that's right for it and put blood all over me, like, fuck it, I'm there. Like, I don't, like, done. But this place I was for so long with auditions, of being like really fucking mad at them, just feeling like, well, this isn't anything like what we're going to do. Like, this is all bullshit. None of this is going to be what we're going to do when we get there. And so like, this is fucking stupid. And really having that point of view for a long time. And it's because I wasn't good at it. And I think the creative process and the beautiful thing about art, it is exponential. It is not finished. It is always in development. And that's what I love, is I love the creative developing process. And on sets, it's a little more instantaneous. It's like, hey, can I get this prop? Hey, can I get this thing? Oh, this is the light's going to be like. Oh, this is what the set's going to be like. And it's a little more like a grab and go. I feel like, yes. I got all these things, right? It feels like a shopping spree, right?
Yeah.
But having a leveled up experience in terms of getting bigger, being asked more of me auditions. And growing my process and my capacity to then fit this new container. It's very personal. It's my relationship to the work.
I mean, while you're saying all of that, I just keep thinking about, it brought something back that I've said before and I haven't thought about in a while, which is that while I am so obviously grateful and having such an amazing time while I'm on these sets with these, A-list actors, and my life feels like a literal movie, like not to be weird, but like, it feels like a dream that I'm there, and I appreciate all of that in its own right. But it's like, I think that the best times I've had have been at 2 a.m. in my taping room with a friend laughing hysterically because we are so sleep deprived, but we have to get this tape in after a long shift at our side job when we had that. And she's on the floor and we got pillows and I've got a pillow stuffed in her shirt because she's playing a pregnant woman giving birth or whatever it is. Right. And it's like the joy that those moments are filled with, and then the breakthroughs that we ultimately have in those tiny spaces is like, that's the stuff that I'm going to cry about later.
Yeah. And my experience is, as you start working more and as your experiences and roles on set get bigger, those moments are then on set. You're on set more, and it's so yummy. You're in music. So it's like the difference between like having a little jam fest with somebody at 2 a.m. And that's great. And it is really fulfilling.
Yeah.
And then going and getting paid to have a jam fest with like 500 of the best musicians.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
And in the beginning, you only get to be like, doot, doot, doot. That's what I contributed. And then you get to like really play in the music with people.
Yeah.
And all of it, it's not just the actors aren't just the musicians, it's the writers, and as they're retooling things, and props, like being excited to solve a problem, and art department being excited to give you more to work with, like bringing it all alive. It's a gap between moving from one level to another level.
It is. Yeah. Because it's essentially the same experience, right? It's just in a different environment and in a leveled up environment. That's you know, I'm looking forward to all of those moments that will eventually come.
But wait, Dani, wait. You amazing goddess. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by Carla Zuniga Hair. That's Carla Zuniga Hair, the hair wizard. She is incredible. If you are looking for a haircut, guy or girl, that is going to have some dimension to it, that you can do some different things with. I first went to Carla because I had a friend who had this, amazing haircut. And I asked her, I said, I need a haircut that is going to be really specific because I'm on set shooting something long-term and going to come back into town. I have some agent meetings. So I need somebody who can cut my hair for the agent meetings, but also it will still be viable for this thing that I was shooting. And I really love the specificity their haircut had. And so I found Carla and I started using her. And I get compliments on my haircut every time I'm in the chair, every single time I'm in the chair. It is COVID. Go get rid of that COVID quarantine hair. Chop this pandemic off. Live your best life, please. If you have curly hair, she's a curly hair wizard. You should go on and just see so many of the transformations that she has had. If you are somebody who's maybe going to chop all of your hair off and get like a cute little pixie cut, then please, go to somebody that you trust that has a proven track record in having incredible success with haircut transformations of all kinds. Carla Zuniga Hair. That's Carla Zuniga Hair. You can message her on Instagram. She checks her DMs all the time. Please reach out. If you have a listener question, please call in 667-ACTOR-70. That's 667-ACTOR-70 for all your listener question needs.
Hey, Audrey. My name is Allison Allwine, and I am calling from Los Angeles, California. My Instagram is @AllisonAllwine, and it's Allison with one L. I'm calling because I am getting ready for Self-Tape May, and I want to be very specific and targeted and not just do a bunch of monologues that feel self-indulgent. So I'm wanting to do 4 that are co-stars, 4 that are guest stars, 4 that are recurring, and 4 that are starring self-tapes. And I was curious if you had a resource somewhere, or you could speak to the topic of what types of sides I should be pulling. I know I can pull something that is a co-star from a TV show that is on my target list, but I'm just curious, when you're receiving those auditions, what do those packets look like? How much of that material are you receiving for something like a guest star versus a recurring? How long are the sides if it's monologues? Or how many pages of it should I expect to receive if I'm going to practice? I just want to make sure that I am practicing correctly for these types of things and doing the amount of content that would be required within a self-tape audition scenario. So can't wait to hear from you. Very excited for Self-Tape May.
Hey girl, hey. So I'm super excited about this question. I just wanted to let you know, wouldn't it be amazing if billing was actually related to the amount of material that you did? Unfortunately, that's just not true. I have had 4-line guest stars, and I have had multi-scene, multi-episode co-stars. So that is all part of the process. So maybe what you can do is, instead of necessarily doing co-stars versus guest stars, co-stars are generally, there's no name. So like customer number 1, barista number 2, usually like a handful of lines, a few lines. So if that's something, when you're thinking of co-stars, I would really think like, maybe a page max, like a character comes on for a singular page. If it's more than a page, that's more frequently a guest star. If it is a recurring guest star, then you're going to see multiple scenes that person might have without them being the lead on the show. So say that there is a hospital show and maybe you have a recurring guest star of a patient who's going to be on several episodes. So that would be, 2, 3, 4 scenes in a singular episode, which is a lot of scenes, but they're not a series regular. That's also sometimes true for what's called the top of show guest star. So that's the guest lead. So again, this is somebody with maybe 2, 3 scenes, usually at least 2 scenes. And the episode is really about that character. So in a procedural, which is like a cop drama or something like that, this is the person that is in the beginning that is like, oh my gosh, I found this body. I can't believe it. And then they're in the middle and they're like, yeah, I just don't know what happened with that body. And then in the end, they're like, I killed them. I did it. They were chopping my trees down and I couldn't take it anymore. They deserve to die. I couldn't take it anymore. So that would be like a top of show guest star. In terms of what you would get for the audition, for a top of show guest star, you usually get 2 or 3 of the scenes. You don't usually get all 4 scenes if there's 4, but you usually get a beginning scene, a middle scene, and an end scene. You can also, though, in your self-tape May practice, you can do scene 1 day, you can do scene 2 the next day, and you can do scene 3 the next day if that's something that you want to do. I like to practice as though it's a real audition. And generally with top of show guest stars, I often get about 2 to 3 days to work on those. Sometimes I get a night. And so it can be helpful to sort of practice in high elevation like an athlete. So that way when you're working at sea level, it's like, oh my God, this is so easy. So learning 3 scenes in 1 day can be really great practice. So that way when you get 3 days, that feels like a luxury and you feel like you have the time and energy to really get into the character and explore some things. That's also a really valuable thing to do. Series regulars, generally, again, 2 to 3 scenes, and sometimes from different episodes. So maybe a series regular, sometimes they don't have a lot in the pilot episode. They maybe have like a scene in the pilot episode with a few lines, but then they'll have a scene from episode 2 and then a scene from episode 3 that are really more imperative and important scenes for their character arc. So they'll get that sort of stuff. Again, everyone, make sure that the material has aired. Even if it's a pilot, you just want to make sure that it's aired. If it's a dead pilot, at your own risk, I would almost rather you just mute it. If you really have a pilot that hasn't aired that you want to practice and you want to work on, I would just rather that you mute it and just say, this is a pilot that I want to work on. This is a character I'm really excited about. It hasn't ever aired. This was from 3 years ago, but I'm muting it just for safety's sake. That's up to you. But I do think err on the side of caution in protecting people's work and just protecting yourself so that nobody calls you and yells at you and screams at you for doing work that hasn't had the opportunity to have the artistic stamp of the creator who has created it. So generally, for theatrical, we're talking co-stars, a handful of lines, no name. For guest stars, usually you can have a 1-day guest star that's a scene, maybe 2 pages, 2.5 pages. For a recurring guest star, top of show guest star, 3-ish scenes usually. And for a series regular, usually 2 to 3 scenes. That's pretty common. All right. I hope that's helpful. I'm super excited to see your tapes.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Well, this has been wonderful. First of all, do you want to plug yourself on social media?
Oh, yeah. So on Instagram and I think also on Twitter, I am at Dani_Deetté. So it's DANI_DEETTE.
Mm-hmm. And do you have your self-tape account that you want to tell people?
Yeah, on Instagram, it's at Tape with Dani.
Okay, wonderful. What is the best part about the business for you?
You know what? Honestly, I have to say the people in it. Mm-hmm. The relationships that I have forged and the people who have come into my life and blessed me. Mm. Yeah. I'm a people person. And
Yeah.
the way in which you get to see people in this business more closely to their true authentic selves and getting to, meet people and be in conversation or relationship with people who are showing you who they are, even when they're scared.
Yeah, that's real.
It's so beautiful to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know it so well because you lived a different life. See, I take all of that very much for granted because I don't know anything else. And then when I go and like hang out with my family back home, I'm like, where are you? And I just, it's
there?
like, yeah, I have to like, and listen, I adore and love them for that even because it's so authentic and real. But it's always like a shock to my system. And first I'm like, oh, right. Like you don't just go around like exposing your feelings all day. It's so
you don't puke your feelings all over strangers getting coffee?
Exactly.
Oh, okay, cool.
That's different. What is the worst part about business for you?
I'll say one of the frustrating parts about the business is knowing how many talented people exist in this world who could be giving to our business, but who stop just shy of the gold, so to speak.
Yeah.
And whose work we'll never see, I think, is something I think about. And as it pertains to my own journey, my mindset from the very beginning, before I knew anything about anything, was I just need people to know that I exist. And then I will do the rest of the work from there. So I think the worst part is knowing inherently maybe what your value is or what level you're capable of in the business, but not quite having the relationships or the things that have been put in place to get you in front of those opportunities.
Yes.
And it's frustrating, but at the same time, my problem solving brain is like, okay, well, what are we going to use to get to that? And da-da-da-da. And so, I'm literally in that moment right now.
In what way do you feel like you're in that moment?
Well, just in the strategizing, problem solving space of
leveling up.
I have these things that I need to capitalize on right now in terms of the work that I've done, the relationships that I've built, and getting an agency at the level in which I want to be at. And I think for a lot of people, getting them to realize, like, on the surface, I am a 30s white female, but I'm different. I'm
What's unique about you?
What sets me apart, and why would this be a good relationship? That kind of stuff. So just the problem solving around all of that. And,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally get that. What do you wish somebody had taught you or managed to get you to understand when you were just a wee babe of all of 32 and decided that you were going to pursue this business professionally?
A wee babe at 32. I guess it's the stuff that I'm always fighting, which is that everybody's going to have an opinion and no one's right and no one's wrong.
God, it's
and
so
ultimately you have to follow your gut and do what feels right. And I wish I would have had the realization sooner that as long as you're being professional and courteous and kind and you have the right intentions, it's okay to push against resistance in certain areas of this business to achieve things in a different way that not everyone else is doing. So whether that's like the way that you build relationships or whatever it is, but like I tend to kind of do things in a very persistent manner, but always maintaining professionalism and, you know what I mean? And kindness, but just to be brave in your decisions and stand firm in them, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
As long as you're not being desperate and, unprofessional.
Well, it's so true about like listening to your gut. I think I talk to actors all the time on this podcast about like markets, and we talk about market research, and when I talk to them about markets, it's like, do the research, but also if your gut is telling you a certain market, like follow it. And I don't necessarily know that means that will immediately lead to some sort of, return on investment fast. But I do think like we all have these journeys and we're all being led. And I do think if you don't answer the call and if your gut's like, go to such and such market or whatever it is, right? And you don't answer that call, you're probably going to eventually because it's there and it's there for a reason. And so you could sort of maybe do it now or you could do it in 2 years. But either way, it's calling you. you don't know the future. If you knew that you were going to do that thing and it was going to work out well, it wouldn't be a risk.
Right.
But it's a risk. And if we have to take risks in our creative life, you have to take risks in your professional life. It's the same. It's all the same process.
Yep.
And if you knew that taking that acting choice was definitely going to be received really well and was going to get you cast, it wouldn't be a risk. And there's something about the not knowing of like, I'm going to do this thing and then doing it and being willing for it to go wrong. That's kind of where brilliance lies. That's kind of where innovation lies. That's where something that stands out that's uniquely you lies. And it is risky. My experience is that it does feel like,
You guys should see her right now. She literally looks like the screen froze because she's so good at this face. Like not a muscle moved when she got into position.
I feel it so intently and I do it, but I've gotten better at knowing when the risk feels like risk but yes versus risk but no.
That
I
part.
sort of know intuitively, but I only know what that difference is because I've taken the risk and seen the results to know that there's like a little feeling part inside of me, a little compass that's different for yes versus no.
Yeah, and I find that your gut, your intuition, the universe, God, whatever it is that you call it, is going to continue to nudge you.
Yeah.
Because this has happened to me over and over again, time and time again, where I'll call my friend and talk about something, and he has said to me, you know, this is like the third time we're talking about it. So you already know the answer of what you're going to do.
That's me and all of my closest friends don't listen to the podcast. And everyone else is like, your friends don't listen to the podcast? I'm like, you know what they don't need is more Audrey telling them what to do all day. Like, if you're in the friend circle, you already get plenty of that action. And they do not anymore.
Well, and here's the other thing, too. It's like when the decision is someone else's to be made, I can make that decision so clearly. It's so obvious what the answer is, right? And so sometimes I have to actually step outside myself and be like, if I was giving this advice to somebody else, what would that answer be based on everything that they've just given me? So that can be helpful sometimes.
That's that investigative mind of yours, though.
Right, I guess so.
Let's hit it from every angle. Listen, I really love and adore you. I feel like we're just going to be besties. I really think that I so identify with everything that you said. I'm so glad that you won and that we get to have this conversation. And I'm so excited for all your professional, wins that have come and are coming at you.
Thank you.
And with, again, you saying the name of your dear friend who brought us together. And if you have any dance or anything of your friend, give it to me. We'll post it when this airs. That way everyone can sort of see the magic, the wonder.
So my friend's name is Trayvon Lindsay, and he went by Trey.
Wonderful. Well, Trey, we honor you and thank you so much for bringing us together. This is such a wonderful match, and I'm so grateful that we got to talk about you and that we'll get to share you and share your work. And I know really that this will be a source of a lot of comfort and compassion for there's so many people who have lost and are losing people that they love, both to this virus and to any other thing that's happening. We need a lot of healing and a lot of compassion. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Audrey.
You're so welcome.
Next week on Audrey Helps Actors, we have the wonderful commercial agent, Jamie Hernandez. That's Jamie Hernandez. Okay, so Jamie is an incredible agent over at KMR. She is head of adult commercials at KMR. And we're just going to talk about, these self-tapes for commercial actors now. It's a brave new world. I hope some of you are doing commercial tapes for your Self-Tape May extravaganza. She is so wonderful and so generous. Her husband's an actor. She was an actor long ago, so she really understands. I have friends who are repped by Jamie and just love her to pieces. So we talk about all things self-tape regarding commercials, from the perspective of the agent. And I know you love those agent interviews. So check it out next week, Jamie Hernandez. You can follow her at Agent Jamie Hernandez on Instagram. Special thanks this week to Dani Deetté. That's Dani Deetté. I love you, girl. You know you're my fave. I can't wait till we meet one day. That's going to be really exciting for me. I'm super excited. You can follow Dani's self-tapes on Tape with Dani. That's Tape with Dani, or her personal account, Dani_Deette. And I'm going to be posting some things for her and about her, but also, you know, she's going to have some posts on here about her dear best friend who passed, Trey. What a beautiful, magical light he seemed to have been. Trey Lindsay. You can look up Trey's account. It is still up there. TreiLindsey. Trey Lindsay. Thank you so much for your beautiful spirit and for bringing us together. I am so honored and so grateful that we had this space to honor you and your memory and your presence. Thank you so much.
Special thanks this week and every week to Thomas Snodgrass for his incredible work with sound. Thanks, Tommy. You guys, Thomas loves to surf, so if you ever see him out there, just give him a little hang something sign what you do with your hands. Executive producer, Jesse Lumen, my still so handsome husband, getting more handsome every year, I should say. Show music by Ari De Niro, theme song by Aalok Mehta and 108 Hill, and editing by Taylor Martorana. Taylor! Crushing it.
All right. Don't forget your towel.